Well, made it 15 days through the 2025 General Assembly legislative session.
Halfway over.
Halfway over. So for people, those of you that maybe don't know this, in odd years, we actually have a 30-day session. And in even years is the years when we do budget. So we do a 2-year budget. So we do 60 days in the even years. And so we are halfway through. We have 15 days behind us. We have 15 days in front of us. We'll go through March the 14th. That will be our final day before the veto period. So basically, we give those 10 days. The governor can veto any bill that he would like to veto. We leave 2 days to come back and be able to pass anything else that needs to be passed, and then do our most favorite thing that we do, and that is override the governor's vetoes. So with a supermajority here in Kentucky, even though we don't get near as much done as I personally think we should, and a lot of my constituents think that we should, we do get to override anything that the governor doesn't like and vetoes. So we enjoy doing that, and most of the time, if he vetoes it, we do override it. There's been a few things that he's pointed out that maybe could have been better or we didn't override, but very few. And I always think back to 2023 when we passed the bill that stopped the mutilation of children's bodies, and he vetoed that bill. And ever since that time, I've thought about how maybe deceived or deluded somebody's mind has to be to protect that or to be okay with that. But anyway, we get to do it, and so it's a lot of fun. We got 15 days left in front of us, and there's going to be a lot of things start moving over the next few days because, as we always do, we've slow-walked bills, and we've not done a whole lot as far as passing bills in the beginning of the session. And it's by design. So what happens is we do that, and then all of a sudden we're out of time. We don't have time to push that through or to pass that bill, or it makes it out of the House, but we ran out of time to get it through the Senate. So that's kind of the way it works, and we've learned to roll with it and to find ways to advance bills and legislation. And we're going to talk a little bit about one of those bills as we go through this podcast. We'll talk about a few, but one specifically, and the issue as a whole, and what we're dealing with here in the state of Kentucky.
Okay, and so I think that is House Bill 207.
That is correct.
Are you the sponsor of that bill?
I am the primary sponsor of that bill, and so that is my bill. I have some people that have co-sponsored on it with me and some other members in the House, and I filed this bill last year as well. It was the first time that I had filed it. And the legislative process is meant to be somewhat cumbersome, to get buy-in, to get the issue out there, and to not just be able to just push stuff through, even though that does happen at times, and we're usually trying to figure out how to stop it or slow it down. But it's meant to take time because it's important. We're passing laws that affect people's lives, and when we're doing that, there needs to be thought and scrutiny and debate and dissent. And that's something I talk about a lot. But those things need to be a part of the process. So House Bill 207 is a bill that I sponsored last year and then reintroduced this year.
Okay. And I think that there's also another bill, maybe House Bill 653.
Yeah.
Does that kind of go together? Or is it it's two separate bills, but do they kind of have similarities? It's
two separate bills, but they're addressing the same issue.
Okay.
So House Bill 207 basically says that if a book or a piece of literature is too obscene to be read in a school board meeting, then we need to get it out of the school. It's an extremely common sense piece of legislation. It's very simple. If it's too obscene to bring it up or to read excerpts from it in a school board meeting, why would we have it in the school system?
Exactly.
Right. So that's what House Bill 207. The other bill that I filed really deals more with the process. So it actually broadens the definition to be able to know what is obscene and what is harmful to minors.
Okay.
And it enlarges on that definition. And it also deals with age appropriateness as well. So it gives a process for parents to be able to say this is not age appropriate or this is obscene, it's harmful to a minor, and it would be removed out of the school system. If they didn't like the answer that they got, they could appeal all the way up to the Kentucky Board of Education, and then the Kentucky Board of Education would be required to designate a small board to review that book. And then if they decided it was obscene to minors, they would have to get it out of the entire state. So that's the difference between the two.
Okay, so House Bill 207 is the one where if a parent or a guardian or someone can't read it in the school board meeting, has that happened anywhere where they have shut someone down from reading the contents of a book in a meeting?
It has happened.
Okay.
Yeah, it happened specifically in Jefferson County. It's happened a few different times where parents have tried to bring those books into a school board meeting and read the portions of it that they had concerns about their child being exposed to it, and they were shut down and told that they couldn't read it because there were minors present.
But that book is in a library for minors.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So will you face any backlash or pushback from this bill?
Well, there is backlash that comes, and most of the time it doesn't come from within the legislature. It comes from leftist delusional people who for some reason think that it's good for kids to be exposed to this type of content. And so they use several things. First of all, they try to use parents' rights. So they'll say, as a parent, I'm fine with my kid being exposed to that, so you need to stay out of it. Or they'll use the fact that we're just trying to push or ban books out of the system.
Right. So that is a big thing. They talk about people banning books. They celebrate a week, I guess, and the top books that are banned, and they encourage students to read those books. And with this, are you actually banning books?
Well, let me talk about that for just a minute, because I would like to find a way to disconnect Kentucky completely from the American Library Association, because they are a part of the organizations that push these books into our school system. And they do have a week, they call it Banned Book Week, and they say we want to get kids all across the country to read these books that are quote unquote being banned, and they push this agenda on people. And what we saw this past year is there were schools in Kentucky that were celebrating Banned Book Week. They had some of their posters up and even had some of these specific books on their poster, encouraging kids to read them and to check them out.
Well, who decides what books come into the school library?
So primarily it's decided by the librarian. From what I understand, they have a lot of the say, but I think a lot of times...
The school librarian?
That's correct.
Okay.
I think what happens a lot of times from what people have explained to me is they get flooded or inundated with a lot of material. So they'll have books, and a lot of these books are actually... they're purchased in a group of books that are suggested by American Library Association or some other type of reading group. And so they'll get these books in, and I've been told some of them didn't even know that they were in their library or that they didn't know the content of the books. I don't think that's an acceptable answer when you are there for the purpose to make sure that you have good material for the kids and you're there as a buffer between the outside and the kids. You need to make sure that it's good. So, but I've been told that that's what happens. And so the American Library Association, they have sought through other groups to push these things into our school system. And when we talk about this, you hear this argument all the time that you're trying to just ban books. You want to get rid of To Kill a Mockingbird, or you want to get rid of, name some.
Well, I saw
book.
a bulletin board from a school that they were doing the Celebrate the Banned Book Week, and I think they had featured on there Charlotte's Web and a few different, at one point in time where somebody had an issue with something, and then some of the more questionable books that people are concerned about are maybe in the background. They don't have that as the forefront. Nobody's trying to get people not to read Charlotte's Web.
No, it's all a diversion.
Yes.
And this is the thing. If you go to their website, they actually give the top 10 most challenged books. And they had 2024, they celebrated Banned Book Week. And in 2024, they went back to 2023 of the books that they said were the most challenged or the most banned books. Here's what they are. Number one, the number one most challenged book is a book called Gender Queer. That's the number one. There was a mother in Jefferson County that tried her best to get this book and a book called Lawn Boy removed out of the Jefferson County public school system. She ended up, I think, going into the court system with them, and it got appealed all the way up to the school board, and they decided that they needed to keep this book in the system for the kids, that it was for the betterment of the kids, to not get rid of it.
How old was her child?
I think he was 11 at the time, maybe 12,
okay.
But in that age range.
So I just as a side note, you said Gender Queer.
Correct.
So I'm pretty sure that the age for that, if you purchase it on Amazon, is recommended for 18 and up.
Yeah.
Just wanted to.
Well, these are the books. Gender Queer, All Boys Aren't Blue, This Book is Gay, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, Flamer, The Bluest Eye, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, Tricks by Ellen Hopkins, Let's Talk About It, The Teen's Guide to Sex, Relationships, and Being a Human, and then a book called Sold. And what you find is that the content of these books, not only is it obscene, not only is much of it filth, and some of it is pictured,
pornographic,
all type of pornographic acts, not only is all that involved in it, but it is all LGBTQAI plus oriented. They are promoting a mindset, and that's what they're doing. That is the whole premise of why they are putting these books in. They don't come out and say this, but just look at the most challenged books of what they're calling the most challenged books, or the books that they need for people to get behind protecting, to make sure that they can be given to minors.
Yes.
And so they're pushing that mindset on kids.
So the lady that you mentioned that was found out about that in her child's school, was that the same person that brought the information to the Kentucky legislator?
She was one of them.
Okay.
There was a group of mothers that got together. We passed Senate Bill 5 in 2023.
Okay.
And that it was a step. It is beyond me as to why that we don't just fix these issues when it comes to kids, when it comes to protecting the hearts and the minds of kids. But it was a step, and basically what it did, it put a process in place that said that if a parent had a problem with a book, they could report that to the principal. The principal would look at it. If he didn't have a problem with it, they could appeal, and then the school board would appoint some people to decide on that book whether or not it was okay to stay in the school system or needed to be taken out.
How did she discover that the book was in the library? Did her child check it out?
I don't remember exactly what it was that brought it to light. There was some type of situation. It could have been maybe during COVID, during that period of time when parents were finding out a lot of things that they didn't realize was going on. But I don't remember exactly what happened that brought it to light, but it was brought to her attention. It was in the school that her son was attending, and she felt like it needed to come out of the library system, that other kids shouldn't be exposed to it, or her kid.
So I know one time when I was up in Frankfurt with you in your office, and I was sorting some things out on your desk while you were in a meeting, there was some papers that were stapled together, and I was just looking through to see if we needed to file it or do whatever. And I can't even tell you how embarrassed and mortified I was by what I saw on that. And I quickly turned it over. And when you came back in the office, I said, "Why do you have this? Where did this come from?" And that was, I think it was some of the excerpts from these books. Mm-hmm. And I'm a grown married woman, and I was thoroughly embarrassed and just couldn't believe that was there, and that it was there for a child to see. So if somebody brings that to the attention of the school librarian or the principal or the teacher, what is the argument for them to keep it in the school?
Well, this is a lot of times what they say is, and these packets were given to many legislators.
Yes, I found that out later.
Even some of the people on the other side of the aisle, when they saw the material, they were appalled at what they saw, and they even brought that up. But this is the argument that they make, is that these books have life experiences that some people are dealing with, and they're not seeing that in the general population that they are friends with around them. So when they get to read a book like this, they find somebody that they can relate to with their life experience. And so that's what they use to try to push their agenda through, that these kids are already struggling. They're already having trouble maybe with gender dysphoria, or they're attracted to the same sex, and because it may not be accepted in their home or be accepted around them, they find this book and they're able to find somebody that they can relate to through the stories that are in the book. This is the thing about it. These books are absolutely perverted. Many of them are perverted. They have rape. They have all different types of deviant things going on. Some of them have pictures of adults and minors together in acts. They are absolutely perverted.
Yeah.
And they pervert the minds of kids. They promote things. Kids are curious by nature.
Absolutely.
And they promote things in their mind that, first, it's not age appropriate at all, even if it was something that was wholesome, and it's not the school's place, it's not the taxpayer's place to be able to introduce those things to kids if it was something that wasn't deviant or perverted. But these books are absolutely perverted.
So are these books funded by taxpayer dollars?
Yes, many of them are. They're brought into the school system by taxpayers. So taxpayers are funding kids having their minds perverted by some of this filth.
So is this happening in Kentucky schools? Are these books in Kentucky schools? Because they're going to say that they're not.
They absolutely are.
Okay.
There's a couple websites out there, and we'll put that information in at the bottom of the video. So when people go to YouTube, you can find the link to these websites. But you can find, there's a map. It's got the schools. It's got some of the ratings as far as if there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 ratings. And they have rated these books based on the content. So 4s and 5s are going to be books that have explicit and deviant stuff in them. And they show which schools throughout the state of Kentucky have this filth in them. And
is it a lot?
It is a lot. Yeah, it is a lot. And it's not just in the large counties. So a lot of people think, oh, yeah, well, Jefferson County or Fayette County, they're more liberal areas. It's not. It's all across the state. It's in small counties. LaRue County was promoting Banned Book Week and had one of these books on a poster at their library encouraging kids to participate in reading those books in rural Kentucky, rural America. And I think many times parents, maybe they don't realize that this is going on or realize what their kids are exposed to. And because of that, you don't hear about it. You don't see pushback on it.
Right.
But this is, I think it's a worthy cause. It's a worthy fight. It is something that I've been talking about for several years since I've been in the legislature. And it's an opportunity for us to just protect kids and allow them to stay innocent a little bit longer.
Is there similar legislation in other states that follow that, the bill that you're wanting to have be heard?
Yeah, there has been some states that have passed it, specifically Florida passed this, and they also did some other things as well above and beyond that we need to do in Kentucky, which is one of the reasons that I filed this other bill, because we need to take it, we need to go further. It shouldn't be, when you look at the content of these books, this shouldn't be a process of a parent goes to a teacher and then a teacher goes to a principal and then a principal says, well, I don't know. And then the principal goes to the superintendent and then the superintendent brings it before the school board and the school board says, well, let's appoint 3 people or 5 people and find out. That's not the kind of material that we're talking about here.
Right.
We're talking about things that you used to have to pay for and do it very discreetly in order to get it. But now we have this coming in to our schools, in our middle schools.
Okay, so some of these books are graphic novels.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so not only are you reading words, you are seeing images.
Yes.
And some of those are pornographic in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so is pornography a problem with minors?
It is. I was reading some statistics the other day, and kids are being exposed to pornography at a younger and younger age. It's estimated now that most kids are exposed to pornography somewhere between the ages of 9 and 11 when they are first introduced to it. And there's this argument, this freedom argument about let adults be adults, and I understand all of that when it comes to freedoms. This puts kids in bondage.
It does.
It's not about freedom. It's about bondage. It puts kids in bondage because what happens is their mind and their emotions are not built to carry such a heavy load. And because of that, they're getting this weight on them. It's, as I said earlier, because they are curious by nature and they start finding out things that they're not emotionally ready to find out. And again, sometimes we actually control that. You know, I would be fine without having any type of sex ed in the school system and leave it completely to the home and to the parent. But we are careful with that even in the public school system.
Right.
And we do it for that reason because of age appropriateness.
Right.
But with these books, because they are associated with the LGBTQ AI plus agenda, people are afraid to speak out about them. And they're afraid to say something because they don't want to be that person, the bigot, the person that hates a group of people in our country, or you're going to cause more kids to be suicidal. And they have all these answers and fear tactics that they use to try to keep this stuff in front of our kids.
So as a parent, and we don't have school age children anymore, but if there's a parent and they are curious, if they listen or they read your bill or different things, and they want to find out if their school has that book, you're saying they could look on a website and see if those books are in their school system. So what if they went to the principal or the superintendent right now, because this is not a bill yet that has passed.
Right.
What if they went to them with concerns and said, hey, you have, 3 or 4 books that I didn't know if you knew, but they're not age appropriate. They have sexually explicit content. Some of it has to do with rape and incest and LGBTQ, stuff, and it has pictures, and we're concerned about that. Can the principal or the superintendent make that decision to go ahead and just take that out of the school?
They could make that decision. And this is the problem with this whole process. So when we passed Senate Bill 5, basically what it said, they go to the principal. The principal can remove it, or he can actually push it up to the school board and then let the school board appoint a board of people to make the final decision about the book. But there's a lot of people out there that are afraid to remove this stuff because of the loudness of the other side and the pushback that they will get if they actually do take it out. And so what happened in the situation with Jefferson County, the request was made to have it removed. They push it all the way up to the school board. The school board, I think they appointed a board of people to review it. And then they said, oh, we need to keep it.
And what was their reasoning?
Just because they wanted to have that broad spectrum of life experience that these people, these kids that were there could relate to, and they could find somebody like them in a storybook.
So let me ask you a question. And you may not know this. I don't know if you've researched this. Are there graphic novels in our school system that have to do with, that have the sexually explicit content that's not LGBTQ plus? Like, do they show pornographic images and suggestions and all of those types of things?
There are some things that involve other life experiences.
Okay.
For instance, you brought up about the incest and things like that. So there are books that depict that type of stuff as well.
In picture form?
And rape. Yeah, there are some in picture form. They're cartoonish picture form, but they're explicit. Yes.
And that is different from the LGBTQ.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm having trouble understanding that if you bring that to someone's attention,
Mm-hmm.
that you're in middle school. So that's what, 6th to 8th grade. Okay. So you're dealing with 11 to 13-year-olds.
Right.
Why is that okay?
It shouldn't be okay.
Why is there even okay, so one person brings it in, the librarian?
Ultimately, yes.
Okay. So one person makes the decision to bring it in. Why does it take 30 people to try to come up with a solution if we can take it out?
Well, this is what should happen. And it's a problem that we need to recognize that we have in our society. And that is, we should flood these school board meetings where they have this inappropriate stuff with parents demanding that we take it out and that we address it and that we keep our schools clean from this type of filth. That's exactly what should be happening. But what we have done over the last several decades is we have kept our mouths shut, and we have lost ground, and we've lost ground, and we've lost ground. And now we've got to the place that we went so far that people are afraid to simply just speak up because they do not want to be ostracized in their community or in the public. And They don't want to contribute to a kid feeling bad. They don't want to contribute to a kid being suicidal. And that's all the things that the left uses as to why that we should allow this stuff.
And that is that misplaced compassion again.
Yes.
Where you think you're doing the right thing and you're not. So somebody's going to tell you, hey, if these kids don't have these books, they may end up so depressed because they don't know if anybody else out there is, like them, and this will give them that affirmation. There's no evidence, none. It's too early to show that any of these things that they're doing, this affirming and all this, is making them less suicidal. Well, so you might as well just tell them the truth.
Think about this. Think about if we were out with our kids and we were at a park somewhere and one of our kids wandered off and they went over and sat down on a park bench beside a stranger, and we were doing something over to the side, and you happened to kind of go that way because you wanted to see what they were doing and you didn't know who that person was, and you got close to them, and that person that sitting beside our kid was showing them something that was explicit, something that was obscene, by way of a magazine or on their phone or whatever the case may be. Number one, we're going to have a major problem.
Oh, yeah.
The police are going to come, and there's a good chance that if they did that person would be arrested for exposing a child to that type of thing.
Right.
Why is it okay in our school system?
I'm having trouble understanding why this is even necessary. To have parents go read graphic sexual content that makes everyone embarrassed and nobody wants to hear it, and they would shut them down at a school board meeting, but they're fighting to keep it in the schools where you said mostly, what is it, middle school and high school?
Middle school and high school.
They're going to deal with stuff through their whole life that they'll wish they had never seen, had never done, and why not protect them as much as you can right now?
Well, there's actually been school board meetings to where people have went and read excerpts from these books, and they have cut the video and told the people, we can't post this video online with that content.
Because it's inappropriate?
Correct. And Senator Titchener, I've done it as well in committee meeting because our meetings are televised. When you pick some of this material up and show it to the camera, and they have to pull away because it doesn't meet their standards. It's too explicit for them to televise and to show to the people that are watching.
But it's okay for the kids.
But it's okay for kids. It's not okay for kids.
But that's the message that they're sending.
We've got to, as a society, we have to stand up and say, this is not okay. And we need parents to engage in that. And part of why we're having this discussion, one, we want people to advocate for House Bill 207.
Yes.
It's a no-brainer. It is a simple bill. If you can't read in a school board meeting, you shouldn't be able to have it in the school district.
And I can't imagine anyone pushing back against that.
Right.
But you're going to have that. You're going to have people that say, is this modern day book banning?
Oh, yeah. And this is the thing about the book banning. Nobody's banning books. You can go to Amazon, you can go to most any bookstore and buy these books. They're not banned. They show the pictures of people burning books and, you're trying to get your, like Nazi Germany. All of that is a farce. All of that is something that the left uses to promote fear and to push their agenda. That's it.
And if you as a parent want to purchase that book, those books that you listed for your child, I don't agree with it. I don't understand it. But it is America, and you can buy those books. But taxpayer money should not be providing those for kids, especially impressionable kids and parents that are trying to keep their kids away from content like that.
Correct. So taxpayer dollars shouldn't pay for the books. And taxpayer dollars shouldn't facilitate the ability for kids to be exposed to those books.
And right. And you as a parent can do that on your own dime.
Yes.
Nobody's going to, I mean, we may not agree with you, but that's your prerogative.
But this is the thing too. And people don't like to hear this, but it's a fact. There's only 2 or 3 reasons why any adult would want to expose a child to pornographic, explicit stuff. There's only a few reasons. One could be that, you know, they're messed up in the head. It could be that they're perverted, or we are dealing with pedophiles out there too. People that prey on children. And a situation that I've been involved in just in the last little bit. And in every sector of society, there are good people and bad people.
Right.
So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that where kids are, these people try to find a way, if they're perverts, they find a way to infiltrate those places to be close to kids if they are perverted. And so they find their way into these different places of society where kids congregate together, and they start looking for a weak child that they can prey on. And so I don't know why anybody would want to expose a kid to that personally, but at the end of the day, with some of this stuff, it is so explicit that it automatically leads me to think that there is nefarious motives if somebody is trying to expose a kid to this.
Absolutely. Because of the age, too. An 11-year-old, there's no reason in the world why an 11-year-old should have to have any of those images or those ideas in their mind.
Right.
At all.
And this is what I was saying earlier. So part of the reason that we're discussing this tonight is because we want to get the word out about House Bill 207. The other thing is that we want parents to be informed and to know what is going on. If you don't know, I'm warning you, I'm telling you, I am trying to get you to understand. There's ways you can find out. We'll drop this link for this website. You can do open records request. You can just simply ask to go in and find out and start asking questions for yourself. But we need parents to engage and to stand up and to say enough is enough. Quit perverting the minds of kids.
Can a parent visit the school library? I mean, I'm sure they could.
They could. There would be a process to make that happen. One of the bills that we worked on a few years ago that involved parents' rights was to give the parents more access inside of the school and the classroom even, and there has to be order,
right,
and all of that. But parents just need to know what's going on. It seems like that we live in a society because of electronics and because everybody is so busy in life a lot of times. And I'm not beating parents. There are great parents out there, and there are parents out there that need to wake up.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's real easy to just drop them off. They do their thing. If you don't hear from the school anything bad, that's great day, and you end the day, and you just don't know what they may have been exposed to and what's going on in their mind and the damage that those types of things can do.
But if Amazon has an age requirement for that book, a suggested age requirement that states you should be 18 or older, why in the world would it be in a middle school library?
Right.
Who is behind that?
It's a great question. And I think that there's a lot more behind it than what we realize, because it is definitely an agenda that is driving it. And it's bigger than your county. It's bigger than Kentucky. And it may be bigger than America. But there is definitely an agenda that is driving it. More and more of these books are coming out that are targeting children with this explicit, obscene content. And so what happened is back a few years ago, they were fighting to get genderqueer out, fighting to get lawn boy out. Now, I mean, they're coming in left and right, and they're having to dedicate people to just research constantly to find out these new books that are coming out with this content, so they can make sure that they're informing parents and people know that their kids have the possibility of being exposed to it.
And I read the jacket on one of the books, the back of the books, and it gives a mixed message because it sounds hopeful. Mm-hmm. It offers a message of hope that this is going to help kids and this is going to possibly save their life. And so if you as a parent see that, hear that, or a teacher is telling you that, or a school librarian, you think, okay, this must be okay. And it's not okay.
Right.
It is not okay. I know that, we have 5 children. When they were young, I tried to keep ahead of them with things that they were reading because I wanted to know what they were digesting, as far as taking in.
Right.
And Julie got, way ahead of me sometimes because she just loved to read. Mm-hmm. And there were times when, I would say, hey, have you read this book yet? And she's like, well, I started it. I'm like, not right now. It wasn't a bad book.
Yeah.
She was 8. Maybe you can read this when you're 13 because you're not mature enough to handle the content. Not that it was bad, just trying to do that. And I just can't imagine what would go through a middle school kid's mind seeing some of the images mm-hmm. that I saw from that handout, that I was just absolutely floored. I thought, what is this? Who wants to see this? And
right.
then come to find out that's just, they could pick that up from their school library.
Yes.
And that's just so damaging. And and I know that a lot of times things that you see in your mind, you don't ever get away from those.
That's right.
They pop up at the weirdest times. It's like you can't forget it.
That's right.
So why put something like that? That is damaging.
Yes.
That is not helpful.
And that is part of
the truth. That is damaging.
That is part of the motive for some people that are behind this. Some people may be deceived. Some people may be naive. They maybe don't know. But we are trying to get the truth out. We want people to know why I would even file a bill like this. Why is this important for you as a parent to look into and to do some research about? Find out about your school and make sure that your kid's mind is protected and their hearts are protected. And I think that is so important that we do that, because kids are flooded, they're inundated right now with the information because of the technological world that we live in. And so we've got to make sure that we fight back against this agenda. I'm committed to the fight. I'm going to keep fighting it as long as I can. And we've got grandkids now, and it's going to be a year and a half, and they're going to be going to school. And, as far as I know, they'll go to the private school that our kids went to. But I promise you, in this society that we live in and all that is going on wherever they go in life, the last thing that I want to happen is for them to be exposed to that type of thing. And it would probably be a pretty bad day for anybody that would expose one of my grandkids to it. Just a fact.
And just as, for parents out there, if you, don't take our word for it, I mean, and I hate to say look it up, but look at some of those books that you mentioned, and it has some passages and different things, and just look at it through the eyes of, do I really want my 12-year-old son to see this right now? Is he in a place like, does he need this? Is this going to help him? And I would think everybody would have to give a resounding no.
Yes. I think people with common sense, and common sense seems to be coming back in our society a little bit. We're seeing some common sense wins. And so we want you to be informed. Here's what you can do. It'll also be in the body of this video. You can find the link there to the LRC, the Legislative research commission to where you can make phone calls and you can send emails about this bill. It has been assigned to the Education Committee, so we just need to get it on the agenda and have a discussion about it. And I believe we would easily have the votes to pass something simple like this. Do we need to go farther? Yes. We actually need to go very far in this to protect kids. But every step that we can take is maybe another child's mind that has been preserved from this type of filth, and it's worth it. It's worth the fight.
Let me ask you one just scenario. What if this bill came to the floor and there was argument and somebody started to read the content of the books? Would it get shut down?
It probably would. This is the thing. I don't know. So we have immunity for basically anything we say on the floor because we're allowed to, quote unquote, have debate. We're not allowed to use props. And it could be said that a person was using a prop.
Okay.
One thing that we can do, we can read stuff on the floor like through emails or anything like that, as long as it's been distributed to everybody on the floor. That was a change in our rules. So I could distribute some of this to
email
to everybody, a copy of it on the floor, and they would have it. And then at that point, I could read it. I can tell you that they would have a major problem with it.
I know.
As they should.
And the embarrassment and just the inappropriateness. And that's why I just can't, it just boggles my mind. And so I'm like, why would you give this to our kids?
Yeah. Well, it has to end. It's got to stop. And we need parents to wake up. We need there are parents engaged in this fight.
Yes.
And we are honored to work with you on this. And we thank you for what you're doing. But we need a whole lot more. Because I guarantee you, if every parent or 90% of the parents of a school showed up at a school board meeting and said, this book comes out tonight, it'd probably come out.
It would.
So we need people to push back. Thank you for listening. We want you to like, share, subscribe, get the word out about our podcast, and comment in the body of the video if you've got some ideas for some discussion that you would like for us to have. Put it out there, but we're just trying to keep you informed about some things that are happening right now in the legislative session. We got 15 days left to go, so we got to get as much done as we possibly can. Thank you, and God bless.